Hi, this is Kunal Shah, CEO and co-founder of ClaraSim, and we are enabling medical professionals to interact with their patient in imaging in a much more interactive and clinically meaningful way. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through one key use case that this is particularly valuable for. We're going to look at a patient that needs a cochlear implant, went in to see an ENT surgeon, and we're going to see how the surgeon would prepare for their case using something like this. And so we opened our application here. We're going to open the patient CT scan. Now, this is just a standard raw clinical CT of their temporal bone. It's their left ear. And what we're going to do, there's a couple steps that the machine learning model needs to be able to standardize the image for segmentation. So it's fully automatic. We just have to indicate which side it's on. This one was the left side. So that's done. And we're going to label it demo 2 because I think I did one earlier today. Now, what's going to happen is whenever I click segment, our machine learning model is then going to go to work, depending on how fast my internet is today. It could be anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds, maybe even sooner. And so what is this model doing? It is going to take the CT scan that we uploaded for the patient, and it's going to identify 9 key structures, critical structures that the surgeon needs to know. Okay, looks like it's already done. 9 structures that the surgeon needs to know in order to safely perform the procedure. And what it's going to do with those structures, you see they've popped up here. It's actually going to identify within the CT scan which voxel in that scan um, correlates with which anatomical structure. And you'll see that's important later because it tells the computer how each particular voxel is going to behave when the ENT in this case, in this particular example, interacts with it. But um, it does that fully automatically. Now, this is a process if the surgeon were to do it manually, which they do sometimes. It takes, an hour, hour and a half for each individual patient. We just saw this happen in about 15 seconds for these 9 structures to be identified on every single slice of the clinical CT. All right, so now we have the segmented model. We are ready to actually perform the rehearsal. And so I'm going to click Go to ClaraSim Rehearsal. And what you're going to see is our system takes this segmented annotated CT scan and puts it in a format that's extremely interactive and extremely surgically meaningful um, for the user, again, in this case, the ENT, but in a more general sense, whichever medical professional is wanting to interact with their patient data. So we see this has popped up. This is the exact same scan, just rendered in 3D. You see those color-coded sections have kind of all been identified here. Now, some of them you can't see because they're hidden within other pieces of bone. But there's a number of them, and you even see some kind of deep inside the inside of the structure there. You can see the way it's moving. We've this is not a surface volume. It's a fully volumetric rendering of this specific patient's anatomy as derived from their CT scan. Now, why is this important? It allows me as a medical professional to actually simulate what operating on this patient is going to look look like, feel like, and sound like. How do we get that? In my video, on my desk here, you'll see I have this 3D mouse that I'm using as a controller. And you'll see that the 3D mouse kind of simulates or it controls a virtual drill that can interact with this virtual bone. Now, what's interesting about this is it's not just an interaction happening inside the computer. I'm actually feeling the resistance and I'm feeling haptic feedback and force feedback from the interaction that's happening inside the software. So whenever I put the drill out here, it just feels like I'm moving my handle in my hand around in space. But as I push my handle towards the screen and my drill goes towards the bone, when I make contact, I physically cannot push this any further. I am experiencing forces in my hand that correlate to what a surgeon would experience if they were to push a surgical drill into this particular patient's bone and their particular bone density. And it's not just for, very brute forces like pushing. As I scrape across the anatomy here, I can feel all the textures. I can feel this little ridge. I can feel this bump over there. I can feel that these cells have a little more air in them, and I can feel the unevenness that comes with that. And these are signs that surgeons actually use and medical professionals actually use whenever they're trying to plan a procedure, just before they had to derive it from the CT scan. Um, Furthermore, I can't. It's not even just like looking at the CT scan. I can actually manipulate it and learn what this patient's anatomy is going to look like and feel like over the course of the procedure, right? And so I'll start by drilling into the mastoid here. And what's happening, I'll narrate over the sound of the drill, which you hear. But what's happening is I'm actually feeling the resistance that happens as I shave away these upper layers of cells. And so you'll see, I'll zoom in, you'll see the model actually updates and exposes some of the air cells that are underneath that upper layer of bone. Um, and it's not just like blindly cutting right through. I'm actually applying a pretty delicate amount of force, and it's shaving accordingly, and it's giving me the force feedback and resistance in my hand that correlates to what a surgeon would feel if they applied this much force to this specific patient's anatomy and shave away their bony tissue that has this specific density. And so what we're doing is we're able to give medical professionals a very realistic experience. They're feeling what they would feel in surgery, they're seeing in 3D what they would see in surgery, and they're hearing the sounds that are associated with bone being shaved away, and they can hear changes in pitch and tonality that give them indications as to what's happening anatomically. And so again, this is just one simple use case, but our goal at ClaraSim is to allow medical professionals to interact with their patient's images in a brand new way. And what that means is instead of looking at an image that looks like this, but without the coloration, it's just the plain black and white image that we had before, they can instead look at something that looks like this. Um, and I just reset it. But yeah, they can look at something that looks like this and interact with it and see how that changes over time.